Would it be better if you had the brain of a caveman? Ooh, you probably have an answer right off the bat, but stick around because you may change your mind. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I am your host, Catryn Becker, and in this podcast, we interview all sorts of different successful and educational people because we want to learn what they have learned in life that has led to their success. Because while a smart person learns from their own mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. And we know that there's all sorts of mountains of failures and learnings and mistakes that have led to them being so successful. And we are going to get into the nitty gritty of our mind today. I have Morry Zelcovitch, who is the founder of the Morry method, which is brain entrainment. And if you've never heard of that before, then you definitely need to stick around and need to learn about this amazing tool that you can add to your toolbox to make your life a little bit better. Morry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Catryn. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my message and hopefully help people to see life a little differently so they can experience it a little better than maybe they are right now.
Well, that's exactly why we have this show, because it's you don't know what you don't know. So let's come together, get a little slice of information, and then you can choose to dig deeper if you like. So
Yeah.
I started this off by saying, would it be better if your brain was more like a caveman? You have a really interesting take on this, and I'd love for you to kind of share your thoughts on this area.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, most people, when they hear that question, would go, "Of course not. Why would I want the brain of a caveman?" In reality, the brain of a caveman or a cave person, to be more politically
Yes,
correct
sorry,
in
didn't
this
mean to
case.
misgender.
Yeah, let's be fair to everybody here. So a cave person's brain is actually functioning more naturally than ours. Back in prehistoric days, it's reasonable to assume that people really didn't know anything. So we didn't know much about war. We didn't know about disease. We didn't know about pain, really. We didn't know about anything. What did we do? We likely woke up with the sun. We likely went to bed with the moon. Everything in between was about survival. It was about drinking, eating, having sex. Sex felt good. It still feels good. That's nature's way of getting us to do it because back then we didn't know that sex procreated the species.
Hmm.
We just did it because it felt good. Again, Mother Nature at work. The trick here is that we panicked when there was a time to panic. A saber-toothed tiger or a bear or something is attacking. We'd go into a hyper alert state. We would take care of business and then we would calm right down again. We didn't have taxes to worry about. We didn't have wars to worry about. We didn't have illness to worry about because we frankly didn't have that complicated a thought process. Our brains did what they're supposed to do. And even though a cave person's brain is maybe a little bit less evolved physically than ours, the basic structure and the basic purpose is the same. You know, breathing, digesting, heart rate, all these different things that happened anyway, reacting to stimulus around us, reacting to fear, reacting to love, reacting to hate, reacting to all these different things. It's all the same. The interesting thing is that today, with all these distractions, with our smartphones, with computers, with email, with ding, 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 dong, 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 all the notifications in our lives, our brains don't get an opportunity to be in a dominant state for any particular amount of time. And the reason why that is a negative is that our brains, when they get into different states, create different chemistry.
Hmm.
And it's actually that chemistry that allows us to be who we are and to feel what we feel and experience what we experience. If you're bored with me now and wishing this would be over already, so you can move on to something interesting, that is actually you creating brainwave activity that translates into creating chemistry that allows you to feel that way. If you're interested by what I'm saying, that feeling of interest is nothing more than an expression of the chemistry your brain is creating, allowing you to be interested. It's the
You
same
know,
thing with everything about our lives that way. So actually, yeah, you do want the mind and the brain of a cave person, because that's healthier. It's more natural. And it gives your brain the chemistry it needs to behave. You can look at it this way. Look at a car. Imagine you don't have enough steering fluid, you don't have enough brake fluid, you don't have enough fuel, you don't have enough this, you don't have enough of that. The car's going to run really poorly.
hmm.
That's kind of what we're at right now. The cave person actually is running smoothly because they're fully topped up with all their fluids.
That's a really good analogy. But there's one thing I want to go back to that you mentioned to just really drive this point home. And it's something that I work with my clients a lot in understanding is the average person in their walking around assume that they're being led by their feelings. And they don't realize that there's a thought process first that causes the release of those brain chemicals that then causes the feelings and the emotions, which then drives the behaviors and actions. So I just kind of want to reiterate that a little bit so people can have a better understanding of just how important these thoughts are and what we can do with them.
That's an excellent point. You know, people should know that their thoughts create their reality.
Hmm.
And if we are thinking good thoughts, our reality is good. It's kind of like cooking. If you're a good cook, you take the ingredients you're given and you measure them and you place them in the right positions and in the right spots and in the right amounts. And the food is nutritious and it's delicious. If you're like me, you're a crappy cook. And it doesn't matter what ingredients you have. Anything I cook pretty much tastes like dishwater. And that's the trick. So if your life doesn't taste good, it's because of what's going on here.
Mm.
And the nice thing about that is because it's what's going on here, you have control. You can change it. And that's the real amazing thing about your brain and about your life. If
Oh,
your life is great now, it could be better. If it's not great, that's not a bad thing. That's just a sensor telling you I'm doing and or thinking the wrong things. And, you know, I encourage you to not misinterpret bad feelings or even depression. If
I
we
like to think a
understand it,
lot. I like to think a lot of emotions not really being good or bad. We like to assign this sort of value to them, but I try to think of it in terms of helpful, not helpful. Like, truthfully, I will die someday. Is that a helpful thought for me to have now as a 40-year-old woman? No. So it's not necessarily a negative thought to have, but it's just not a helpful thought. But I love the idea of us all thinking about we get the same ingredients. We all have, the same ingredients that we can get access to, but it's what we do with it to whether or not we create a burnt meal or, a delicious gourmet experience for our mouth to have.
that's
So
correct.
I want to talk a little bit just because, having a brain expert and getting to talk through all of these kind of misconceptions or, new ways of thinking that our current understanding is constantly evolving and expanding. And that's the concept of a lot of people will use the saying, we only use 10% of our brain. For people listening, he just rolled his eyes for the people video in case you missed that. So obviously this is something that you have come up against. So I'd love to dig deeper into that.
So there's a lot of problems with what people think. You know, we're kind of taught things by people who don't actually know what they're talking about, but because they're older or they hold some kind of power over us, we believe what they say just because we believe what they say.
Mm,
It's really important to check the receipts. You have a
mm.
brain for a reason. You're not a hard drive. You're a processing unit. You process information, you process stimulation. Don't hold yourself back by believing what I'm saying. What I'm saying is from my understanding, my current understanding. If it inspires you to think, beautiful, think. But it shouldn't inspire you to just believe what I'm saying because I have a deep authoritative news voice, right? Think. You are your own source of everything. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks or says around you or what anybody creates around them. Your life is different. Your life is based on your experience. It's based on how you've been taught about certain things. Do you believe in God? Do you not believe in God? Do you believe in the tooth fairy? Do you not believe in the tooth fairy? Do you believe in yourself?
Mm,
Do you believe in others? We all live in our own universe. Words don't even mean the same thing to me that they mean to you. So how can I possibly hope to tell you how to live your life? And yet so many of us out there telling us, I have the secret to happiness. I have the secret to this. I have the secret to that. My work is about you discovering your own secrets
Mm,
because I believe in quantum physics currently. That means, on the most basic level, nothing exists until it is observed. The thing with human beings is, my observation is that when we observe something, we also give it meaning. We define it. That means that if you are looking at the same thing I'm looking at, and you see something differently, and you go, well, this is what I see, this is what I'm experiencing, and I don't see that, and I don't experience that, I can't say you're wrong.
mm,
I have to say you're right because that is what you are observing. Again, nothing exists until it's observed. So if you observe something and I observe something differently, we're both right, and neither of us is wrong.
mm,
Think of the kind of world we could have if people stopped worrying about, oh, I have to be right all the time and you have to be wrong.
right.
That's how I used to be. Now I fully accept everything everybody says, and I'm learning because I can't learn from someone who thinks the way I do, but I can learn from people who think otherwise. And that's where the real value comes in. So this whole shift in my belief system about going from I'm right and you're wrong to you're right and I'm right, because whatever we observe is what is existing in our universe. The thing is, I see you now. So I just assume you're existing in my universe.
Mm,
But in reality, we're like two bubbles. And right now we're rubbing up against each other and we're connecting. But after this interview, you're going to go your way, I'm going to go my way, and our bubbles won't be there anymore. You won't see me, you won't think of me, I won't see you, I won't think of you. That's simply because our universes are in contact now. Now they're not in contact. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't think it matters. I think you inferred earlier that there is no good or bad. It's just the choice we choose to give something,
mm,
the value we choose to give something. You know, someone asked me, what if you're in pain your whole life, like severe pain, and you live to be 80 in pain? How is that, you know, how can you not interpret that as bad? Well, what if your actual existence on this planet was only the equivalent to stubbing your toe? So you stub your toe, it hurts like hell for a few seconds, and then you're fine.
mm,
What if us as a being really exists far beyond our bodies? And what if that full lifetime of pain is nothing more, relatively speaking, than stubbing our toe?
mm. I also, I just, that's such, gosh, I love good metaphors and analogies and different ways to help us think things. But the point that I really want to make sure we drive home is what you said about when you're always trying to be right, you're not necessarily learning because you're so busy trying to prove your own point instead of being open to learning from others. And I think as a takeaway, if someone gets nothing else out of this, just to consider that fact or that current understanding, not necessarily a fact, but just to consider, am I learning and am I growing if I'm always trying to prove everyone else wrong and proving myself right? It's a very
That's an excellent
limiting way of
point.
thinking.
Yeah. But it teaches us. I mean, haven't always been like this.
Hmm.
I used to listen for someone to shut up so I could explain to them why they're wrong.
And so many people live that way, don't they?
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
unfortunate, but hopefully people will kind of see that in themselves if that's something that they have as an issue and realize that being right isn't the same thing as being happy.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I prefer now to choose to be happy as opposed to choosing to be right.
And think about all of the trainings that exist on active listening. Like we don't necessarily naturally listen to other people. We have to be trained on how to be good listeners.
Yeah, that's so true.
And it goes back to your point of we're all in our own universe. And
I think if we understand that, at least that's a working model that seems to work for me. I think if people understand that they're in their own universe, it makes it easier to communicate because at that point we understand that, you know, the person I'm speaking with may not really understand what I'm saying. So I have to be more careful in how I communicate myself with them. You know, one of the things I've noticed, there's an old phrase that goes, "The eyes are the windows to the soul."
mm,
I believe I understand people better when I'm looking them in the eye.
Mhm.
And I think they'll understand me better when they're looking me in the eye when I speak as well. And if we can get ourselves to understand that we don't really understand each other, then that is the best place to be.
Mm.
You know, an example I use with clients sometimes is my Tony Robbins scenario. So I'm 6'1". Tony Robbins is like 6'7". And he had different parents. I know that's a surprise. You all thought that we were related, but he had different parents. He had different upbringing. So, like, maybe he has a different religious upbringing than I have. Maybe he has a different this than I have. He had different lunch than I had. He wears different clothes than I had. So let's say I go to one of his talks and I meet him and I want to buy one of his courses. And for the sake of this story, one of his courses is his suit. Okay. So I say, "Hey, Tony, nice to meet you. I'd like to buy your suit, please." And he says, "Sure, Morry, cut me a Venmo for 10 grand and here's my suit." So I give him 10 grand and he walks into the back. He changes clothes. He puts his suit in a nice bag and he gives it to me. So I go home. If I try on that suit, I'm going to look like a 6-year-old trying on dad's clothing, right? Because it's way too big for me. Doesn't fit me, looks terrible. But if I go home and on the way home, I stop by a tailor and I say, "Can you measure me and, maybe make this suit fit me? Can you tailor it to fit me?" Tailor will go, "Sure." A little bit of chalk here, a little bit of chalk there. And when I come back in a week, the suit fits me like a glove. So the moral of the story is that nobody can tell you how to be. Nobody can tell you how to be smart, how to be successful, how to be happy. Not even Tony Robbins, not even Oprah Winfrey, not even Wayne Dyer, not even Deepak Chopra. None of the brilliant minds in self-help can do anything to tell you how to be successful or how to be happy or how to be loved or how to be any of these things. But what they can do is they can inspire you. And if you're inspired by anything I'm saying, don't just take it verbatim because you're not me, just like you're not Tony and you're not Oprah and you're not this. But if you tailor what I say that resonates with you, if you reinterpret it, you reimagine it to be something that is more in line with you, that's when the suit, quote unquote, is going to fit. That's when what I say has the best chance of success for you. Once you make it your own, once you tailor it to fit you, that's when you have the best chance of success. And I believe this is something that should be stated in a paragraph in front of every self-help book, in front of every course, in front of every audio, in front of every video, that you need to reinterpret and reimagine this stuff because there's so many people who spend thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on self-help products and they never get anywhere with them.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest problem. Why? Because they're trying to follow what the expert did, but the expert can only be an expert in themselves. They can't be an expert in you. You are the only expert in you. So I hope
So
that, like you were saying, if people get nothing else from this, I hope they understand that reinterpret, reimagine, reinvent anything you resonate with that you hear from someone else. Make it your own. And that's when you have the best chance of success,
mm,
not by following or mirroring my actions or Tony Robbins' actions or Oprah Winfrey's actions.
and that's when authenticity is more than just a buzzword.
Yes.
That's when it becomes true. So how do people find these tailors? How do they learn to tailor it? Is that something that brain entrainment can help with?
Brain entrainment helps people to get into their own natural states, whatever that is.
Sure.
So if I get them into a natural state, say in the theta bandwidth, our brainwaves might be the same, but the effects that these brainwaves are having at that moment are different and
Mm,
are unique unto each person. It's almost like an automatic tailoring system. They don't have
interesting.
to ask, they don't have to try, it just happens.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really a matter of how do they do it? They just do it. But you have to understand that I'm not following them anymore. I'm learning from them. That's the trick. When you learn, I come across a lot of coaches in my work who want help in helping their clients. And the coaches, a lot of them are trained. by professional agencies, Tony Robbins organizations, Deepak Chopra organizations, even Oprah Winfrey and others. And they make the mistake, in my view, of thinking, well, wait a minute, now I'm an Oprah Winfrey accredited coach. Now I'm a this accredited coach. Well, you know what? No matter what you've learned, even if you were in a class of 100,000 people, every single one of these people is slightly different in how they apply that knowledge. That's the trick. The trick isn't so much to know how to be different, but it's to recognize that you are different and you're going to apply that knowledge differently anyway. That's why I hate the term life coach. Life coach just drops everyone into the same category, when in reality, I believe that each of you is a unique individual and you will apply all of that knowledge uniquely based on your own signature, your own spice, your own flavor of life. And that makes you unique. So I suggest you stop calling yourself a life coach and figure out a way to call yourself something that's unique. You'll notice that you called me the world's first and only brainwave entrainment engineer. I coined that phrase because that's what I am. Nobody does what I do.
Mm,
In reality, nobody does what you do either.
yeah. Well, I rebelled against the phrase life coach when I first started
Good.
going into programs because I was like, it's just not me. And I really struggled with all sorts of different iterations of phrases and things until I settled on people optimization specialist.
I
And I was
love
like,
that.
that is me. That resonates at my frequency. And I love saying that. I love being able to use that phrase. And I think words have so much power, and being able to claim them for yourself and find where that gives you that extra boost, that extra
I
second.
love that. That's a very positive statement. POS, right?
Yeah.
Optimization specialist. So there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Changing it from any other acronym that POS might stand for.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
I'm reclaiming that. I'm taking
Funny your mind went there.
I've had people bring that up to me, and I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that, but good
Yeah.
to know. Thanks. Not changing. Well, so you came into brain entrainment. We've been having quite the, jovial, positive conversation, but you didn't come into brain entrainment from the most positive of
No.
situations. So this is the good, bad, and ugly. So as we are, and wrapping up this conversation, I just want people to understand a little bit of how far you've come in your journey so that they can have a better understanding of just how impactful the Morry method truly is.
So I spent the first 40 odd years of my life wanting to be dead. I tried to kill myself at least 6 times that I'm aware of. Thing is, if I really wanted to die, one should have been enough.
Mm,
So when I couldn't find a way to die, I had to find a way to live because I couldn't go on the way I was feeling. I used to wake up every morning. I used to cross my fingers and look out my curtains and hope I would see mushroom clouds.
mm,
I had a affirmational phrase that I still think today is dramatic, although it's disgusting. Life is a disease for which there is no cure but death.
mm.
I must have repeated that hundreds of thousands of times over 40 years. And that was my life. Absolutely my life. I heard thousands of voices on a nonstop basis, kind of like if you're in a crowd, maybe at an intermission of a concert of thousands of people or a sporting event with everyone talking at the same time.
Mm.
I was afraid to live. I was afraid to die. Imagine someone who wants to end their life, but they're afraid to die too.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard other people who've talked to me about their suicidal ideation saying that they just wanted to end it, period. They had no fear of dying. It was something they actually looked forward to. For me, I looked forward to it and I was terrified of it at the same time.
Mm.
So
Well, it's like a person who has the fear of success and the fear of failure at the same time.
I suppose, yeah,
I
it
can both
depends on the
exist.
person,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's very likely. I've had that as well. So I've had tons of fear in my life, but then I decided that if I could understand the dynamics behind something, then I wouldn't be afraid of it anymore.
Mm.
Because fear really doesn't have a place to exist. I can't eat in the past. I can't breathe in the past either. I can't eat in the future and I can't breathe in the future. I can only eat and breathe right now, which to me proves there is only now.
Mm.
And memory gives us the illusion of history, of past. But in reality, when we think of what we did yesterday, we're thinking of it now. When yesterday was actually there, it was actually now. So really all there is now. And fear can only exist in the future, because fear is something that we're thinking about possibly happening. Someone's holding a knife to our neck. The fear is they're going to slice it. But again, right now, the knife's just at our neck. They may pull it away. They may start laughing and go, "It was a joke. What are you worried about? It's a
Mm.
rubber knife. Look, it doesn't even
Yeah.
do anything." Right? Fear is something that it can only exist in the future, but the future doesn't exist. There's no such thing as the future. When the future gets here, it's now. When the future, when the past happened, when it was happening, it was now. When I'm thinking about it, it's now. Now is all there is.
Can I ask a
At
question
least that's
about
my
that?
current understanding. Yeah.
So the question that came to mind and maybe there's an answer for this, maybe there's not, but in our brain, when we are, quote unquote, remembering something versus when we are dreaming about the future and creating a scenario, is there any difference in the brain between how those different scenarios are created? Are they separate functions? Am I
You
asking
know,
that correctly? So,
yeah, you're asking that just fine. So the human mind, because keep in mind the brain is a structure, the mind is the actual thinking process.
sure.
So we kind of make the mistake of saying, well, at least my current understanding says it's a mistake, in assuming that the brain is the mind. The mind, there's actually neurons in your heart too,
Hmm.
brain cells. There's brain cells in your gut also.
Hmm.
I think for each person, that answer is different. It's one of those things where I can't answer that question. It's a good question for you. It's one of the reasons why I give a money back guarantee for people, because I can't tell if something is going to be good for you. I know how the physical brain works and I know how we can manipulate it to give you the most positive potential. But ultimately, only you can really answer that question for yourself.
Mm.
In a general sense, I can make a generalized opinion, but that opinion is my opinion. It's not necessarily something that's relevant to you or going to be relevant to you. When I wanted to be a psychologist in the beginning, because I was so depressed, and I went to school for psychology thinking, maybe I can help other people and that will help my depression. I always thought that if I couldn't help someone within 6 months, I need to refer them to someone else. But interestingly enough, psychology at that time, at least, you're a successful psychologist if you have a lot of long-term patients.
I always found that interesting.
That doesn't make any sense to me. That means I'm a failure. It doesn't mean I'm succeeding or a
Yeah.
success. If I'm a success, 3 to 6 months, you don't need me anymore. You don't need anybody anymore. You can take care of yourself. That's the whole point behind what I do with brainwave entrainment. It's not about me teaching you or training you or making you better than you are or were. It's about helping you to discover yourself, helping you to find your own power. People say, "Oh, don't give away your power." It's impossible to give away your power. You can't give away your power. But if you believe you have, you don't look for it and
Mm.
then you don't use it. It's all up here. You always have power. You always have the ability to have power. When people say don't give up your power, I find that amusing. When people talk about the conflict between the subconscious and the unconscious and the conscious minds, I find that hilarious because in reality, there's no such thing as the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, or the unconscious mind. Look, I'm waving at you with my left hand. I'm pointing at you with my left hand. I'm making a fist at you with my left hand. Did I just show you three different left hands?
No, it's all the same.
Of course not. It's all the same. Just like it's your mind. There's no conflict between your consciousness and subconscious. That whole thing with the iceberg, where you see this little itty bitty bit that's above the water, and that's your consciousness, and then all this is your unconscious, and your unconscious rules your life, and blah blah blah. That is such a load of crap, in my humble opinion, my current
And your
understanding.
current understanding.
That is such a load of garbage. All of these things are nothing more than categories psychology came up with to categorize different things. It was never intended to separate
Hmm.
these things. But people, again, who don't know what they're talking about, think they're smart, and they like impressing people with their intense knowledge. And their knowledge is bullshit.
Hmm.
Again, you can only be an expert in your own life. So if you perceive life as there's a conflict between your conscious and subconscious, then there will be, because that's what you're imagining. You're creating your reality.
You get to be right.
But but in actuality, there is no conflict, because that's kind of like, I mean, how can the same thing be in conflict with itself? These are just aspects of your mind, conscious, subconscious, unconscious. It's just ways to categorize different features. Again, pointing, fist, wave hello. They're different ways of describing different words. You know, Eskimos have like 500 words to describe ice,
Which isn't that so amazing?
but that's all it is. It's just different words to describe the same thing.
Hmm.
At least that is my current understanding, and I'll stick with it until someone says something or I learn something that changes that thought. But I encourage everyone just to think. That's all. You know, again, if something I said resonates with you, makes sense to you, reinterpret it, reimagine it. Then it will really make sense to you, because it'll be yours.
Hmm.
If it's mine, I'm not you. So don't expect to follow what I did. I think that's why self-help falls on its rear end in most cases. Most people, they sense the value, because there is tons of value in everybody who wants to help someone. Tons of value in that. The mistake is trying to monkey see, monkey do that
Right.
person. Tony Robbins is rich and successful, so I'm going to do everything Tony Robbins says. Well, you know what? Tony Robbins only knows him. He doesn't know me. And
It'll only
his,
get you so far.
that's right. And probably nowhere near far enough. Because again, I am not him. He is not me. I am not you. You are not me.
Hmm.
We're here to inspire. We're not here to tell you what to do. You're the only person who can tell you what to do. And isn't that beautiful?
And that
Now
is
you don't have to
beautiful.
find an expert. You are your own expert.
That
And
is
if your
beautiful.
life isn't what you want it to be, it's because you're not following you. You're following others. Don't follow, lead yourself. And yeah, you'll make some learning experiences along the way. You notice I didn't say mistakes.
I did. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you will make some learning experiences along the way, and that's what it's supposed to be. I told you before that, you know, with my wife, it's the first time I've been in love, but before her, I thought I was in love 30 or 40 times. What does that tell you? I fall in love too easily? No, I thought I was in love, but I actually wasn't. When I experienced the real thing, that opened my eyes. And that's all I'm saying. Open your eyes, and you will find, even though I don't believe in it, I'll use it as a word anyway, you will find your truth,
Hmm.
whatever that is at this moment. And that
Morry,
is what will make you well.
this has been such a great conversation. So many nuggets. And I think the biggest one is that really looking at and remembering who we are and who we were created to be and finding ways to live up to that is a
Let
big
me just add one quick thing here,
of
because
course.
you inspired me. You are supposed to be happy. And the evidence of that is that happiness feels good. So don't listen to anyone who says, oh, you can't be happy all the time. That's BS. You can definitely be happy all the time. That's why happy feels good. Unhappy is telling you you're doing and or thinking the wrong thing for you. So listen to the signals and follow your feelings. And you are supposed to be happy. Look into my eyes. You are supposed to be happy.
We'll have to edit the video to make one of those like black and white smiles behind
Yeah.
your head. Well, I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and every time we talk, I feel inspiration and um, just that little tweak, because that's all you need sometimes. It's just the smallest tweak for things to fall into place. I will put all of your contact information in the show notes, but please, for our audio members, please make sure you tell them where they can go to learn more about you and how to learn more about brain entrainment and the Morry method.
Well, I would like them to, it's going to be very difficult for them to write out some complicated link. So, how about there will be a link, whether it's audio or video that you're going to be watching or listening to, there will be a link just below where you will be able to click and learn everything you need to learn to help you to help yourself.
There we go. Because there's many different ways to do it, and you need to figure out which is the way that's going to work best for you, and then tailor it to you, because we don't want to go around wearing Morry suits.
Exactly, because they won't look good on you, believe me.
Well, Morry, thank you so much again. This has been such a pleasure.
Absolutely been my pleasure. Anytime you want to be entertained, I'm more than happy to do a dance for you.
And to the listeners, thank you so much for being here. We couldn't put on this amazing show and bring you content like this without you. I appreciate your support. Please make sure you continue to like and share this with others so that they can learn what they didn't know that they didn't know as well. Until next time, everyone, take care.
Bye.